All right, so good morning, everybody. Uh, good morning. My name is Munesh Kumar. I'm trying to be an ordinary human being, and my life is about creating a boundaryless world. Okay, so I really welcome Atriji from Delhi. It is not that easy to reach here from Delhi. Both the physical and the mental journey to reach here is actually tough. We are at Sabka Ghar, incidentally. I welcome Sanjeev. Melbourne is even farther. And welcome Patra Saab. This is our first meeting, and so we have to cover a lot of distance before we can actually be with each other. See, what I am going to do today is, in as brief as possible, I will try to explain the elements of the Boundaryless initiative. There are quite a few terminologies, and people actually often get asked what do they mean and why are these words used. There is a term called Boundaryless initiative. There is a term called Boundaryless world. There is a term called Boundaryless multiversity. There is a term called Boundaryless multilog. There is a term called Boundaryless intralog. There is a term called Being Boundaryless Program, or BBP. Then there is BAM. There are other terms like pivot, committees, nodes, etc. I'll try and explain the interconnections of what each one of them means. Before I do that, I just want to focus for a minute about why is Boundaryless initiative required at all. There are so many initiatives in the world, and there are so many problems in the world. And people who are concerned about the future of humanity are always looking for solutions to these problems. One of the assertions Boundaryless initiative has is that today's world is different than any time before in history. To give you a few examples, the population of the world was never so much as it is now. Obviously, there was never enough to feed so many people. People never before in the history had so much capacity to accumulate. Today, actually, everyone has an unlimited capacity to accumulate. It was never the case ever in the world. There are theorists who say we are living in the least violent times of history. The world is least violent as of now, as compared to ever before in history. Knowledge, the pace of creation of knowledge was never so high ever before. And at the same time, the cost of education was never that high as it is now. Similarly, the medical facilities never before in history existed so much as they are now. And the cost of healthcare was never so high ever before. To add a few things, never before did such a high percentage of human population lived in cities. And to add, I would say, human being was never so alienated before in history. The idea of saying all this is because we are living in a time which is different than any time before in history, the problems of this time are different. And therefore, the solutions to the problems of this time also has to lie in a different thinking. So the Boundaryless initiative is actually to focus on those problems, potential solutions, find out what is to be done, and do that. Okay? The objective of creating a Boundaryless initiative is a boundaryless world. And when we are saying world, we are talking about human civilization, 7 billion people. Without elaborating on the first core term, that is the boundary, I don't think there is a point going forward. So how Boundaryless initiative defines boundary is, whenever I honor anything more than a human being, a boundary arises between me and that human being. What I might be honoring can be anything. It might be caste, creed, religion, faith, ideas, food habits, color of the skin, merit, physical strength, physical beauty, economic status, post held, time, anything, and so many other things. So whenever I honor anything more than a human being, a boundary arises. There are a few characteristics of these boundaries. First is that all boundaries are created in the mind. Creation happens by two routes. One is adoption, which is naturally because of our upbringing, our conditioning. So a friend says that before a child is born, he is already, before the atmospheric pressure falls on him, the pressure of culture and sanskars falls on him. So those are adopted boundaries. Then there are certain boundaries which are invented. The invented boundaries are due to our personal experiences. Both these kind of boundaries are essentially created in the mind, then they are perpetuated in my mind, and then finally they are expressed in my behavior. So, at one level, the boundaryless world is a world in which human beings interact with human beings primarily as a human beings rather than something else. So, you are, for me, you are first a human being, then something else. Right? Now, boundaries of age, boundaries of gender, boundaries of sexual preferences, there are so many of kinds which we can honor or not honor. The second characteristic is, nature has made us different. Each one of us is a unique creation of nature. So it is not about equality of people. It is about valuing the other person first as a human being and then as something else. There are something very interesting factors about boundaries. One is that whenever a boundary arises, love is lost. Second, see, boundaries are going to be there. What matters is how much they are honored, how much they are respected. So you may have more physical strength than I have, but whether I value you as a human being or as someone strong. In other words, whether you as a human being exist for me or you exist as your secondary, tertiary, 14th identity or as one of your masks. Right? Next. Depending upon how strong a boundary, human behavior is different. Porous boundaries will facilitate assimilation. Give and take can happen through those boundaries. These are actually wonderful. Consolidated boundaries create prisons. And we are not aware how many prisons do we live in. Each one of us is a prisoner of 50, 100 prisons. And finally, a hardened boundary is a prerequisite for a conflict to arise. If you look at the entire human history, you will realize that any conflict that ever took place was across a boundary. And this boundary arose because something was being valued more than human beings. If you even look at your own life and your relationships and the conflicts, if at all you have any, you will realize that each conflict is because something is being valued more than a human being. We'll go into details of this as we, in something called a Being Boundaryless program, about which I'll come a minute later. Now, human beings are insecure. Right now I will not go into why. That answer again we will look into in the Being Boundaryless program. Because of their insecurity, to handle that insecurity, human beings have a tendency to join into groups. बड़ा हो जाएंगे, will become bigger, so more stronger, less insecure. But the irony is, groups have their own boundaries. And groups have their own insecurities. These groups can form along any axis, but they are nevertheless groups. And these groups also want to expand along their boundary, defend their boundaries. And when these conflicts on the boundaries become strong, the conflicts take place. Anyway, so at another level, the boundaryless world is a world which is devoid of the possibilities of conflict. How this world is going to be created cannot be explained in this talk. One will need to spend some time here at Sabka Ghar and be with the values that with which this place is operating. Maybe participate in a Being Boundaryless program. Maybe after that participate in a Creating a Boundaryless World program. That's a time-taking thing. Anyway, so question is, what is happening in the Boundaryless initiative? Boundaryless initiative is active for about 4 years, and passively it has been building for about 12 years. Right? Here, just to clarify, Boundaryless initiative, the whole appeal of Boundaryless initiative is based on logic. So it has nothing to do with faith or belief. It is not a spirituality where one has to follow the other. It is not a religion in which one has to follow the other. It is in the nature of discussions. The matter of discussion is the human civilization over past about 300 years to future about 300 years. Why this time period is chosen is because present, what we are today, we have become that because of our past. And the immediate past has impacted us more than the more distant past. Naturally. Similarly, what we are today will impact the future. So this is the time frame in which the discussions take place. Before that, also the events that took place do influence us, but we've consciously chosen to have this time frame. And in terms of space, the human civilization is the subject matter. Incidentally, there are two things. One is illusions of nature, which is called Bhagwan ki Maya. So God has made the earth, or God has made animals, plants, sun, water, oxygen, whatever God has made. That is not the subject matter of this discussion. The subject matter of this discussion is the illusions created by man. So what are the illusions created by man? Well, law is one, organization is another, government, money,
each nation is different.
Games are creation of man. Language is creation of man. Sound is a creation of God, but language is a creation of man. Then colors are created by nature, but paintings are created by man. Sound is created by nature, but music is created by man. Artificial entities, companies, societies, blah, 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 blah. Actually religion. And some people can argue that even God is created by man. So anyway, the subject matter of these discussions is the illusions created by man and their impact on the man. Why have we become what we have become individually and collectively? That is the subject matter. Anyway, so what is happening in the initiative is, for about 4.5 months, we have been meeting every month, which we call Boundaryless Multilog. It is a dialogue amongst more than 2 people. And because it is connected with Boundaryless initiative, it is called Boundaryless, and it is a multilog because there are more than 2 people. So monthly we meet and we ask questions. Because the appeal is based on logic, so what we do is we ask questions. So we examine through those questions and inquiries, we examine man's relationship with himself, man's relationship with man, man's relationships with things, the future of humanity, challenges before human civilization, their possible solutions, etc., etc. And the juice of these discussions is conducted in the form of a Being Boundaryless program, which happens monthly. It is a 3-day program. It happens around the second Saturday every month here at Sabka Ghar. It starts on Friday at 10 o'clock and it completes on Sunday, 3 p.m. Anybody above 18 years of age is welcome to participate in the Being Boundaryless program. Being Boundaryless program is actually for creating a boundaryless world. People who are boundaryless, they will be inhabiting the boundaryless world. Right? Now, it will not all happen all of a sudden. So, what we need is first a working model of boundaryless world. So, boundaryless multiversity is a working miniature model of boundaryless world, which is a demonstration project, which is to come up at about 15 kilometers away from here, where the demonstration is that look here, the world is running according to these set of values as of now. And these are the results. There is another alternate set of values on which set of people can live, prosper, and be happy. So this is a demonstration project of principles and assertions of the Boundaryless initiative. To set up, now this multiversity is a big project which will be about 4,000 odd people coming from all parts of the world, belonging to different castes, creeds, different, as many varieties as the world can offer a representation of that. So that is going to take time. Building that is also a challenge. So to take up that challenge, we have a base camp. The purpose of the base camp is to plan and execute the multiversity. This base camp is what we call Sabka Ghar, which is home for everyone. In essence, it actually means that anybody who is willing to work for 7 billion people of the world is welcome at Sabka Ghar. Right? So that is Sabka Ghar. What I am right now talking is actually an intrologue, which is both an introduction to the Boundaryless initiative. Now, there is one interesting activity called BAM currently happening at Sabka Ghar. At the level of event or activity, it is just that there is a residential school set up for children who lose their parents. And the emotional financial guardianships of these children is assumed by people who are willing and who find themselves responsible for the future of humanity. So, to look at it is only that. Now, the question is, how is BAM associated with the Boundaryless initiative? Well, Boundaryless initiative is after all a body of thought. Actually, a collection of assertions. We present them in the form of assertions so that they invite people to discuss. So it is not a follow because I say that you follow. One of the assertions is that it is the collective responsibility of every generation that the next generation is educated. And a collective responsibility. Now this is the assertion. And there is a current reality. Current reality is that we are responsible for the upbringing our biological children. There is a gap between the current reality and the assertion. And by the way, this is only a one value. This is only a value, social value, prevailing value, which can either be this or be that. Now, if in the case of this assertion, if the prevailing social value is that if a child loses his parents, somebody from the society takes care of him, there is no need for the word called orphan in the dictionary or in reality. So, between the current reality and the assertion, from this space arises an inspiration. In this case, the inspiration is an orphanless world. Incidentally, orphanless world is the foundation of a boundaryless world. Because when somebody living in Japan assumes the emotional financial guardianship of a child living in, say, Kenya, so many boundaries have automatically got dissolved. Right? When you are inspired, you will take action and there will be some resulting activity. So BAM is that resulting activity. So BAM for creating an orphanless world is inspired by the assertion called it is the collective responsibility of every generation that the next generation is educated. At present, there are 13 children here at Sabka Ghar, and there are another 20 children who are being supported through BAM at the place they are living. So there are about 33 children. The plan is to have 300 children in this campus. Maybe after about there are 120, 125, 150. Residential school will start in this very campus. Before that, we are sending these children to the nearby schools where other village children go, and that augment their educational and other requirements through the emotional financial guardianship and through the people who are here. Okay, so coming to BAM. BAM has three dimensions. One is called node, another is called pivot, and another is called committees. This Sabka Ghar is the first node of BAM. Like BAM is the first activity within the Boundaryless initiative. Eventually, if people get inspired through this activity, similar nodes can and will come up everywhere in the world. Then there are pivots. Pivot, right now we have two pivots, one in Delhi and one in Roorkee. Pivot is a place for imagining, visioning, and original thinking. As we earlier said, that original thinking is required to solve the problems that the world has today. So there is original thinking. Naturally, people who have completed the Being Boundaryless program can start a pivot in wherever they are living and carry out activities such as boundaryless multilog there, carry out interlog there, and carry out inquiries. Right? So node is one dimension which will replicate in the world. Pivots is another dimension which will replicate in the world. And the BAM network's third dimension is committees, which are virtual committees, operated through Google Groups. So committees there are 7 committees. One is Beneficiary Identification and Admissions Committee, which identify the children in need. So naturally they'll focus at wherever a disaster has happened or a bus has gone, something has gone wrong, they'll try to reach out and find out children if they deserve or if they require support. Second is Campus Development Committee. Third is Curriculum Management Committee. Fourth is Internet and Communications Committee. Fifth is Guardianship Coordination Committee. Sixth is Legal Compliance Committee. And seventh is Support Mobilization Committee. So Support Mobilization Committee, for example, finds the aspirant guardians, finds people for different committees, and finds resources for what is to happen. So through these committees, now each of the committee there are 5, 6, 7 processes. For example, admission administration is a process within the beneficiary identification and admission committee. So the job of the person who is a process owner of admission administration is to hold the admission panel meeting when enough number of requests have been received from the children and get decisions from the admission panel about what kind of support is to be provided to which children. Right? So each process has a process owner and a set of process hands who actually do the work. And these people are spread all over the world. So they coordinate with each other through emails and they carry out. Why this methodology is taken is, this approach is adopted because it is a network. Secondly, whenever a new node has to come up of BAM, one person from each of the processes will come out and a new node can be formed. Right? So that is about the BAM. That's in short. If you have any questions, I'd love to answer. Introduction. That's the, yeah.
So I think what I'm wondering was the second step. So you got the first activity as BAM. It has got some progress made. This is focused on the orphanless world. Now, have you thought of a second activity which is compatible with the Boundaryless, initiative concept? So, what else? List of things that you've brainstormed.
Okay, so I'll tell you. What we do in these multi-logs is we analyze this time period. So there are trends in the society, in every aspect of society. Right? What we try to identify is the underlying trends of the civilization. Then we see if this trend continues, what kind of a future are we going to have for humanity? Suppose this is the future that emerges. Then we ask ourselves, is that future for humanity 200 years down the line acceptable to us? And it's a matter of considered stand. It may be acceptable, it may not be acceptable. In case it is not acceptable, or some elements of it are not acceptable, then we ask ourselves, what strategic intervention at what stage, what point of time and what manner is required for the course correction to take place, so that the future is this and not exactly this. Right? So essentially, your question relates to identifying these strategic interventions. So BAM being the first strategic intervention. Now strategic intervention is actually an activity. An activity will emerge from an inspiration. So somebody who gets inspired by some assertion more than the current reality will be inspired and an activity will automatically generate. This is all people. As they engage more and more with this, strategic interventions will emerge. It's an ongoing journey. We are not attached to this happening in our lifetime. It is something which will take 2 to 3 generations. We are sowing these seeds. And before I depart, and other people who depart, if there are another 200 people taking it up, we have done what we were to do. Bottom line is here, सबका घर शक्ति के विद्युत कण विन्यस्त, विकल जो बिखरे हैं निरुपाय, समन्वय उनका करे समस्त, विजयिनी मानवता हो जाए. That is energy particles which are lying scattered here and there helplessly. If they all come together, humanity will be glorious. So, like you particles of energy. This place is actually meant for collecting these particles of energy so that they get together, they discuss, one doesn't follow the other, they come to a common agreement, plan, then emerge strategic interventions, create leaders, They will go anywhere and anywhere in the world. One of the commitments of Boundaryless Multiversity is who's who of the world. The world leaders will come there, generate out-of-the-box thinking, go back and implement it wherever they can. That is why Multiversity is planned close to an airport.
That is the second, basically, strategic intervention.
Yeah.
If you think about it, that is the biggest second project. That I think it makes sense.
या सो भटकती हुई आत्माओं को इकट्ठा करने का कार्यक्रम
कार्यक्रम. Rest they will take care themselves. Rest they will take care.
So what you did for 5 days was also the part of the same.
मैं actually I was going to intervene and say कि मेरा तो थर्ड कर दीजिए अपना, दो तो आपके हो गए, तीसरा मेरा करा दीजिए.
आप ह्यूमन बीइंग पर फोकस रखिए.
हमारा ह्यूमन बीइंग पे फोकस है.
आपका
हमारा सबसे गरीब के ऊपर फोकस है और हमारा है कि they have to be brought on par with everybody else. And that is the basic drive, which I think is pretty much doable. And I'll talk about that later.
Yeah, we'll talk about it. I just want to say one thing there. In the present model of civilization, it is inevitable that human being is reduced to human resource, which is below the dignity of being human.
I never use human resource. हमने कभी use नहीं किया. हम ना तो किसी को human resource बोलते हैं ना masses बोलते हैं. The individual is the only sum and essence of the model of equality that we bring. Equality of status, which is the fundamental issue, and then the question is equality of opportunity, which leads you to the creation of whatever value you can. Thereafter, everybody still is unequal and should be unequal. There's no there's no difference in the relative standing, but in a particular area, somebody may contribute more, somebody contributes less. That's a different matter. That is because of the innate inequality, as you said.
Innate inequality. Anyway, so just to conclude, 2-3 things. One is Sabka Ghar welcomes everyone who is committed or who even has the intention to work for the 7 billion people of the world. Second is the Sabka Ghar, one of the objectives of Sabka Ghar is to develop self-sufficiency, because we strongly believe or hold that sustainability at the macro level requires self-sufficiency at the local level. Third is anybody is welcome to attend, participate in and contribute to the 3-day Being Boundaryless program, which happens around every second Saturday. With that, thank you.